Madam President, isn't it interesting? Here we are, Christmas week, the weekend before Christmas, and we are talking about needing targeted relief. Now, the Democrats have spent their year pushing off targeted relief. They've had their opportunities to tackle this issue. They have chosen not to tackle this issue. They have chosen to play politics with this issue. And so on the Saturday before Christmas, when we should be home and visiting with our families, I would love to be home with my children and grandchildren, but here we are. And I honestly have decided that my friends across the aisle must not be paying very much attention to what is going on back home. Because in Tennessee, the people back home are very frustrated with them. They seem out of touch. They seem to not care. They don't seem to be interested in taking care of people with needs that have been adversely impacted by COVID. They seem to be more interested in taking care of themselves. This year really did not have to end this way. As I said, our friends across the aisle could have addressed this back in the summer. In July, the minority leader and his colleagues in the House immediately rejected our HEALS Act proposal in favor of Speaker Pelosi's $3 trillion wish list that they had dubbed the HEROES Act. You know, they always give such nice-sounding names to things. Who could be against this? But they rejected the HEALS Act proposal that was targeted, specific relief, and went with the HEROES Act. It was a very partisan bill. It contained provisions that had nothing to do with COVID relief, and that the House and the Senate Democrats knew were going to be stumbling blocks. Their bill was filled with things, nothing to do with taking care of people, but oh, they had it full of poison pills. Why? They wanted to make certain that relief didn't come. They wanted to make certain that they could run this out, get it past the election. And then we find out from Speaker Pelosi herself and from some of the other Democrats that are in leadership. Why did they do this? Oh, politics. It helped them with the election, they thought. So they used people as pawns. Now, that HEROES Act that they continue to like to talk about, it would have undermined state voter ID requirements, and it gave the green light to some ballot harvesting schemes. Isn't it interesting? What are we talking about? What are Tennesseans talking about so much? Yep, you got it. Ballots, elections, some of the harvesting, some of the tricks. Now, those items they had in the HEROES Act, they didn't have anything to do with targeted relief. But you know what? They were willing to play these games and to withhold that relief. Why? They thought that it helped them in winning an election. So that was all back in July. Then comes September 10th. The Democrats again blocked forward motion on another targeted bill, throwing a procedural hurdle in between the American people and desperately needed relief. They got by with it in July, so September rolls along. It's about time for people to start getting ballots, mailing in ballots. What do? Well, they decide to mess with it again, to play politics, to use people as pawns. They lowered the bar even further on October 21st, throwing away $500 billion in targeted relief. They all voted no in an attempt to tear our focus away from another round of funding for small businesses, support for schools, and more money for COVID-19 testing. Now, think about this. Time and again, they say, oh, we've got to have more PPP. We have to have more unemployment insurance. We have to have more money for vaccines. We have to have more money for testing. We have to have more money for getting schools open. But they vote no. They have turned their back on the American people repeatedly. They did it in July. They did it in September. They did it in October. They have turned their back. Think about what a plus-up of unemployment would have done for a family had they decided to vote yes and work with us in July. That would have been a lot of money if they had that plus-up every single week through August, September, October, November, December. Now, I mentioned the October 21st vote. One day earlier, on October 20th, Democrats had blocked Senate action to extend the PPP. That is all of our small businesses, and yes, indeed, they are hurting. We are hearing from them on the phone, through email. They are begging for relief. But the minority leader threw another possibility of compromise out the window by again insisting that Democrats would accept the full HEROES Act or nothing. Isn't that amazing? That's what small businesses have gotten, is nothing. Because my colleagues across the aisle have basically said, give us everything we want, or we'll just vote no. We'll just leave people suffering. So it's not Republicans that have voted no. Republicans have consistently tried to help people, and my friends across the aisle are consistently trying to help themselves and use people as pawns. At the beginning of this month, the minority leader took to the floor again. He rejected targeted relief again. And he demanded that Republicans come to the table. Well, we've been at the table. They're the ones that reject proposal after proposal. Don't want to move forward on things where there is agreement, want to hold out. They have not been paying attention to what is going on outside the four walls of this chamber. And they continue to say, we have to have money to bail out cities and states. Only they call it aid to cities and states, but it's bailouts for these big blue cities and states that were having problems long before lockdowns came along. And they have really made an uncomfortable spot for themselves because of irresponsible spending policies. And I know that Tennesseans do not want to see their tax dollars going to bail out people who have chosen to waste their taxpayers' dollars. And I can't help but wonder how much longer the Democrats are going to allow industries and small businesses and individuals to twist in the wind because they feel like this is a great time to push their socialist agenda. Get us on that fast track. Oh, that's what they would like to do. And still, and you know, Mr. President, we had a hearing this week in Commerce Committee and had some of the venues in the live entertainment industry come before us. People that tend to these stages when the curtains go up, people that are working backstage. We heard from Michael Strickland out of Knoxville, whose company, Bandit Lights, they like these stages, help these shows look great. And you've got millions of people that are in these support industries. We heard from the motor coach industry. We have heard from some of these smaller venues. They are totally shut down. They were totally shut down when the country went into lockdowns. They were the first to be totally closed, and they're going to be the last to reopen. These are people joined by small business retailers and restaurants that can't open their doors, and small business manufacturers that have got to wait for the supply chain to kick back up so that they can reopen their production lines. And they are saying, we need the help. They're asking us, who is blocking it? Who is holding out? And we tell them repeatedly, they could have had relief in July, or they could have had it back in September, or a couple of times in October, or November, or earlier in December. And it is not Republicans that have blocked that relief. Time and again, the Democrats have blocked Republican proposals to send funding where it is needed most. They've rejected every single lifeline that we have tried to throw. I think it's become clear that the Democrats in Washington, D.C. never really saw getting assistance to the unemployed, getting help to small businesses as a priority. Instead, they looked at this, they saw a crisis, they said, well, this is an opportunity, let's not let this crisis go to waste. They have used it so that they can push their message, their agenda, do what the federal government says, or we will let you drown. So, they know that their bills weren't meant to act as help. Maybe they were meant to be a push for their leftist agenda. They know that the emergency financial provisions of the CARES Act were never meant to replace private markets or be used as a mechanism to bail out state and local governments. But you know what? They're going to push to try to make it so, to further a leftist agenda. Crisis management is no substitute for fiscal policy. So I would say to our friends on the left, these tactics have failed. It is time to stop using the American people as pawns. Read your mail, listen to the phones, People want targeted relief that will help them to get to recovery. I yield the floor